Hey, Paul Morrow here, Smart Financial. Thanks for joining us. Welcome back to the channel. If you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and hit that little button down there and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram and there's YouTube and Facebook and all that. Stay up with us for the things that we're doing, not only here online, but also our live meetings. We've had a great time sitting down with some folks in New England. We've been doing Smart Financial grandparenting workshops. And now that the second book is out, we're going to be doing some Smart Financial longevity workshops. And coming in September, we're going to have an economic conference, which will be fun. We're renting out this big hotel and we're going to have food and entertainment and all that. And the good news is if you stay to the end of this video, you can pre-reserve by hitting a button, put your information in there. We have thousands of subscribers, but we are going to give a gift to our subscribers. The first 100 people who reserve are going to get to go to this conference for free. Stay with us to the end and catch up with us on reserving space for the September Smart Financial Conference. But today, let's talk about politics. Democrats, Republicans, independents. Do we really care? Do we really care who's in office and how it affects our money? I know a lot of people do. Let's talk about the reality, not the fantasy. There are a lot of fantasies, a lot of misinformation, a lot of disinformation, a lot of, let's say, massaging of information to try to convince people to do things a certain way. So let's talk about how politics has actually affected money. And I'm going back, are you ready? To 1926. I'm talking about what's better for your money, having a Democratic administration or a Republican administration. A lot of people have a fantasy about this, but they don't really know the numbers. Now, there are 4 configurations that we can imagine for having a political environment that could affect your money. By the way, when we say affect your money, we're going to use a benchmark of the performance of the S&P 500 during these 4 different situations. So here they are. The first situation is a Democratic president with a Democratic Congress. That's configuration number 1. Configuration number 2 is a Republican president with a Republican Congress. Configuration number 3 is a Democratic president with a split Congress. That means Congress that isn't necessarily going to do everything that the president says. Then the 4th configuration is a Republican president with a split conference. So that means that a Republican president, but the Congress is dominated by Democrats, they're not going to do what he says either, or she says. So we have 4 possible configurations of the market going back, are you ready? Until 1926, tracking stock market returns during these different administrations. And people talk a good game, but this is a lot talking about doing a cold plunge in a pool. Talking about it's one thing, doing it for real is a whole different story. And for those of us that have lived in the financial industry, and many of you, I ran a financial practice for 50 years. We did thousands of financial plans. We saw lots of people's money. And everyone will say you should not let politics drive your investing and planning decisions because they have a tendency to change every 4 years. Same with tax policy. In 50 years, we had 47 tax changes. So I think that you have to just take these things with a grain of salt. However, history is an education. And if we look back at what actually happened during these administrations, I'll give it to you one by one for the 4 configurations of politics so far. I don't know what it's like in the future, and I can't predict the future, but I will tell you, if you are looking for the number 1 performance, and we'll work our way down, the number 1 performance is a Democratic president with a divided Congress. We have had that 15 times, and their rate of return, historical rate of return for a Democratic president with a split Congress has been 16.6%. That means that during those administrations where there's a Democratic president with a split Congress, the market has gone up 16% per year. That's an annualized rate of return. Okay? That is the number 1 configuration favorable to the S&P 500 for you investors that are out there. Okay? Now, that's a shock to some people because they happen to think that the best configuration is a Republican president with a divided Congress. A Republican president with a divided Congress has had a historical rate of return of 7.33. Quite a bit less than half. So a Republican president with a divided Congress is much more difficult on the market than a Democratic president with a split Congress. By the way, don't ask me why. This is just a historical number of what actually has happened. Now, what's interesting is that a united Republican president and Congress has almost exactly the same return as a Democratic president with a Democratic Congress. They're both about 14% numbers. In terms of a unified government, Democrats and Republicans are literally exactly the same. So anybody who says that they are so much better than the other, I would say a nice word to say about that is bunk. That's not true. Okay? It's just plain not true. It's not factual, right? They're actually dead level even. Where the interesting division is concerned is when there's divided government. Now we have midterm elections every 2 years and all that, and nobody knows what the future holds. But I would say that as far as politics are concerned, it does affect your money in a few different ways. As far as takeaways are concerned from this, do we really care whether it's Democrat or Republican? No. What we really care about is policy. Number one policy is tax policy. Tax policy affects the amount of money that we pay and, frankly, what we get for that money. If it happens to be a president that invests heavily in military spending, that's great for huge corporations like Boeing and Raytheon and people that are manufacturing those kind of things. If it happens to be an administration that invests heavily in social network programs like Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid for the poor, right? Then people who are in those categories benefit. What we're going through right now is, I would say, an unprecedented revamping of how the U.S. government is spending its money based on the fact that we have a Republican president and a Republican Congress, and they're making sweeping moves to make cuts in certain programs. And I would say right now, if you are concerned about politics, it's because you should be concerned if you are in that category of people who are dependent on these three things. Number one, Social Security changes. Social Security is a program that's a cash flow program. The more workers there are to pay into the program, the better it is for retirees. Steps are being taken now to eliminate workers from the workforce. That's going to have a negative effect on Social Security. Also, Social Security would do better if we paid more. People look at that as a tax, and this administration is not likely to do that. So Social Security is going to be negatively affected by this administration. Second, if you happen to be a low-income person, when I say low-income, I mean that you can earn 150% of the poverty level income, which is $21,000 a year, and be on Medicaid, AID. Medicare is for old people, Medicaid is for poor people, and again, Medicaid is a social network program designed to keep people of very low income in their homes and fed, and it's a poverty reduction program. And again, you can't be in Medicaid if you earn over 150% of the poverty level income, which is about $30,000 a year for a family of four. That's not monthly, that's yearly income. So Medicaid is something that this administration is also looking at cutting. Now, you can cut Medicaid a lot of different ways. One of the ways is they want to have a work requirement. Now, of the people on Medicaid, which is about 70 million people, by the way, in the United States around Medicaid, a lot of them are children. Now, I don't know if you can get a 7-year-old to go to work, but if a child of a poor family is on Medicaid, they get food support. It's called SNAP, right? Supplemental nutritional support, right? SNAP, to $800 a month for food for a family. Now, I don't know how working is going to fix that, but that's what food support is for a child. The second group of people that are on Medicaid are older folks in nursing homes that can't pay their nursing home bill. Now, this is actually quite a crisis because I don't know how many of those people in their beds on Alzheimer's are going to go back to work either. I don't think that's a reality. The reality is, however, if Medicaid payments to nursing homes are cut, this has a very negative effect. 800 and something nursing homes went bankrupt last year alone. By the way, that's a big number for nursing homes. That's a lot of people. I'm not sure where they're all going to go, but in most nursing homes, about 60% of their revenue, 63% comes from Medicaid, and the other 27% comes from what's called private pay. But here's the problem. If you cut Medicaid and you think you're just harming or you're shortchanging Medicaid people, that's not true. If that nursing home goes bankrupt, the private paying passengers have to find a new place to go. So this is quite a thorny issue. It's very thorny because we have more old people every day. This society right now in America, we're manufacturing old people like it's going out of style. In my second book on longevity, the numbers on people living to 100 are going up like crazy. And again, it's medical advances, it's care, it's prescriptions, it's all these good things. But the negative part of that is if you have more older people as a content of our population, you need to support them. Because when someone is 96 years old and they're in a nursing home, they're not going back to work. And if they're out of money and they're in a nursing home, they're not going to go out and rent an apartment at the villa down the road, right? It is a very difficult situation where these folks are going to go. Politics does affect your money in a few different ways. As far as the Republican sort of tax policy is concerned, it is super favorable if they extend tax cuts. And I think that folks who earn $1 million a year are going to continue to save 3%. Tax rates have been reduced from 40% down to 37% for them, and that saves them $30,000 annually. I don't know how that money gets recycled into the economy, but they say that there's some trickle-down effect that they're going to show us someday about how saving taxes for the affluent makes it better for the middle-class families. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but politics does affect your finances, and so you shouldn't really care whether it's Democrats, Republicans, or independents. What you should care about are the three big things. Tax policy, you should pay attention to how tax policy affects you, okay, and act accordingly. Social welfare programs, which include Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, especially if you're someone 65 and over, you need to pay a lot of attention to how changes in Medicare or Medicaid may affect you. And in order to get more information about this kind of stuff, I want you to stay in touch with us and especially consider attending in fall of 2025 our upcoming Smart Financial Conference. We're going to be holding it at the Marriott Hotel in Newton, Massachusetts. And it's going to be a fun event. And we'll have a lot of people there talking about different things, some guest speakers, and we'll have some food and entertainment. And for the first 100 of our subscribers that pre-reserve on the little link that you're going to see, you'll be able to attend that meeting at our expense, even though other people are going to have to pay. And attending that conference is just one more piece of the art of being smart. And I'm Paul Morrow. I'll see you again next time on Smart Financial.